There's a lot going on right now in the world. It's political, maybe it's AI, maybe it's climate change, maybe it's change at work. And for you, there's probably a lot more. How can we avoid being overwhelmed? How can we be resilient? That discussion is coming up right now. And here we are on the HR Hub podcast with me, Andrea Adams. Keep listening to learn about this topic and anything related to HR. You can also find me on YouTube. And today, my guest is again Beverly Beuermann-King. She keynotes on resilience, as well as presenting on workshops and participating on panels. Her company, Work Smart, Live Smart, is a resilience and corporate culture focused company helping people deal with reactions to stress and live better lives. She's worked for the Canadian Mental Health Association. She's also, this is interesting, the president of the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers. I've been aware of her for years, and so I'm really happy to have her on the show. Hi, Beverly. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
Well, thank you for coming on. So we've had a conversation because it's important in HR to consider building resilience in the workforce, but now we're going to have a focus on ourselves because we need that too. So when you think about personal resilience, how do you define it? What does it look like?
Ooh. Resiliency is about being able to live a full and successful, engaged life, whatever that looks like for you. And so, who do you want to be when you grow up is a great question. And how do our tools help us to be the people that we want to be?
I think it's almost like, how do you want to be when you grow up? Not necessarily, what occupation you want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I talk about flourishing. And so
Yes.
it's a great word, and I think it's one that we don't use often enough, but when I'm flourishing, I'm bringing the very best of myself to other people, as well as I'm treating myself kindly, um, which is a big piece too, right?
hmm I have questions about that. I don't want to jump to the negative right away, but we've all had that experience of being in an environment where we weren't flourishing and we didn't know what to do about it. We didn't know if it was our job, if it was our mindset, if it was our boss, if it was, I don't know, the full moon. I don't know.
Even a stage in life, sometimes I think we question, don't we? So when we're not flourishing, we're not being as resilient as we need to be. And so when things are not going well, we look at these 10 resiliency traits. Uh, and how can they fill our bucket or our tool belt in order to be able to help us deal with, plan, buffer, prevent all of
Mhm.
those changes and challenges and traumas that may be impacting us?
So you talked about the traits.
Mhm.
I guess we'll go there now. What are the 10 traits of personal resilience?
Well, what we know is that resilient people, number one, they're able to identify where their stress comes from, which sounds incredibly easy and way too simple, but it's things like not saying, my job is causing my stress. My family is causing my stress. When I use categories that are so big, I can't do anything with them. I have to break them down into smaller pieces. So a great example is I had 2 boys, I still actually have them. So I have 2 boys, but they're now in their 20s, but when they were growing up, oh my goodness, they fought and they fought all the time, like roll on the ground kind of thing. And so I love them and I love them still, but when they fought, that's what drove me crazy. That's what added to my stress. And so if I say just my kids are causing my stress, then what do I do about that? When they're fighting, then I know exactly what I need to do, to be able to deal with that. And so the same goes whether it's at work or with other relationships. But what is it about those things that are causing your stress? Now, sometimes it's not just the issues or things that are happening, but it's also our personality. So personality can either help or it can hinder when it comes to dealing with this stuff. So are you a perfectionist? Are you a procrastinator? Are you a procrastinator? Are you a workaholic? All of those things, do they keep you awake at night thinking about the would haves, the could haves, and the should haves? That's either going to help you to deal with the issues or it's going to just add more stress. So all of that comes into the identifying where your stress comes from.
Mhm. That for me has been a game changer. Learning how to identify the root of whatever I'm stressed about. Usually that I liken it, tell my daughter this, it's like a balloon. Once you know what it is, it's like you can pop the balloon and it just ceases to have so much power.
Mhm.
What are some misconceptions people have about personal resilience?
That there's only one way to be resilient, things like yoga is the only thing, if I'm not doing yoga, then I'm not being as resilient as I can be, or if I'm not meditating for 2 hours a day, then I'm not doing a good enough job. I think for me, it's looking at all of the buckets, right?
Mm,
Have enough tools in each of those buckets. I use a principle called the SOS principle, which it's kind of like a three-legged chair, or these three buckets of tools. So, situation, ourself, and support. And you need tools in each one of those in order to be as resilient as you can be. So, what am I going to do about it? How am I going to take care of myself? Who's there to support me? And when I can ask and answer those kind of questions, I'm in a much better position to be able to put my plan together to be able to deal with whatever I'm facing.
Uh, I feel like I might have cut you off in describing the 10 traits because I think there's 10, right?
There is, and we've done one, but that's okay.
All right. What are the other 9?
Let's see. Resilient people are able to face their fears. And so a lot of the time, we feel anxious, we feel guilty, we feel frustrated. So resilient people are able to tap into it. And I talk about the monkey mind. The monkey mind is that thing that wakes us up in the middle of the night, or that part of our brain that says, hey, that mistake you made when you were 8 years old, and it replays the situation over and over for you. Um, the monkey mind is all about, protecting us, which sounds really weird because it brings up all of the awful things about us, but it's trying to look at the past and go, you know, "Remember those things and let's not make those mistakes again," and it's also looking to the future, and it's guesstimating all the challenges that you might be facing, so it's constantly keeping you on edge. Resilient people are able to quiet that monkey mind and are able to be present because the monkey mind keeps you from being present. They know the strategies and the tools to bring you into the present so that they're able to do whatever it is they need to do and to enjoy. Because sometimes, we've completed this wonderful project and we're already on to the next project because the monkey mind says, "Don't take your foot off the brake, keep on going." And we sometimes, we don't get to celebrate. We don't get to enjoy. We don't get to kind of revel in our successes. So resilient people address the monkey mind, they address their fears, they're able to do so in a way that helps them to be able to enjoy life.
Mhm.
So that's 2.
Yeah, I know. I know. These are all so fascinating. We might not have time to get to all 10, but anyways.
I can shorten some of them up. So,
Okay.
number 3 is they know the strategies to take care of themselves. So eating right, sleeping right, exercising, all the basics, along with micro practices. Those things that you can fit into the day when you're waiting for somebody to come onto a call, or somebody's late for a meeting, or you get something done earlier than what you thought. So there's a whole bunch of different kind of strategies with that. Resilient people have a support network around them, more than just one person, right? Um, there's some days where I think, okay, I've laid a lot onto my husband because he's, who do I vent to, who do I celebrate with? He's like the answer to all of it. But having enough connected people in my support circle that I can use when I need them to and can rely on, and I can give. So it's about giving and getting support.
Mm. Yep.
Resilient people have a focus on who they and how they want to show up. So I often ask the question you know, is this how the very best version of me would show up in this circumstance? Because sometimes, it's not. And so I have to kind of hold myself accountable. 6, 7, 8, and 9 are easy because it's all about our thinking patterns. Are we focused in on the right things? Are we focusing in on the things that we have control over? How are we problem solving? What is it that we're learning? It's all about how we see the world. And then the last one, number 10, is strategic hope. So not just for an
Yeah.
organization, but also for ourselves. What do I believe in? What do I want as my goals? And What does a full and flourishing life look like? I need to define that for myself. I may not be able to say this is exactly it. People have their bucket list. That's going to be part of that full and flourishing life. But again, how am I going to show up? That's also part of it. What relationships do I want to nurture? So that's part of that hope. And it's also about, like I said, previously when we were talking about workplaces as leaders, but also who am I shining that beacon of hope in my network and in my family and in the people that matter to me, because people are struggling. And when I help somebody else, it helps me to keep my struggles in perspective. And so resilient people are able to keep it in
Mm,
perspective in that way.
said last time I love the hope one because that just taps into something that's fundamentally so human. Uh, but I won't dwell on it this time. What are some warning signs? And maybe we all know what they are for ourselves, but maybe you can talk about this a bit. Warning signs that we are losing our resilience.
So I talk about two the answers to two questions. Where in your body do you feel it, and how do other people know that you're experiencing it? And if you can kind of think about those two things, it will give you some of the warning signs. So, is it headaches? Tension headaches, migraine headaches, necks and shoulders are a big one. So some of the physical, heart racing, high blood pressure, um, depression, we heart disease, we talk about these things. But I think some of the ones that give some different insights is, how do other people know when you're stressed out? So, what does it look like? What do you act like? Can they see it on your face? Do you lose your sense of humor? Um, do you go right to the one word answers? Yes, no, fine, whatever kinds of things. Do you stomp? Do you, can they hear you coming down the hallway because you're like,
Yeah.
moving through? And so, um, there's the basic ones, but then, just how do you know? How do other people know? Because we lose a sense of a piece of ourselves. Some people will even say, like, they can tell when they pick up the phone and they listen to the person's voice that something's off, right? Because we do change. The light behind our eyes isn't there. Um, and certainly, I think humor is a big one. Things are not funny anymore, and they get on your nerves, and you get snappy and angry. Sometimes we get a little bit more colorful in our language even, which is
Yes, absolutely. So we also have one actually, swearing, there's swearing for emphasis sometimes because, but then there's swearing because, like, for example, if I were to think about me, when I start swearing too much at other drivers while I'm driving, red flag.
and so little things get on your nerves. And then I would also look at things, which are a bigger indicator, which would be sleep, because sleep is one of the first things that gets impacted. So having trouble falling asleep, staying asleep, not feeling like you're getting the right kind of sleep, and trying all of the things to manage sleep, especially, if you happen to be going through menopause or anything like that, all those things that throw sleep off. But you're trying all of the things and it doesn't seem to be working. It's not getting any better, not getting any easier. There's no reprieve from it. Those are the kinds of things that we look at.
You shared the model around SOS. Is there anything else you need to say about that?
I was just gonna say it's a great model because there's so many tools out there, right? We get
Yes.
so many mixed messages, and I think that's the hardest part. Like, you should take this vitamin, you shouldn't take that vitamin, you should
My
exercise
God.
2 hours a day, only 10 minutes a day. Like, there's always contradictory information. And so the SOS principle for me, whether it's dealing with depression, because my background is from the Canadian Mental Health Association and dealing with major mental illnesses, or it's dealing with your kids who happen to be fighting, the SOS principle works. And so looking at what are the tools that I use to deal with the situation, which is the first S. Can I simplify it, dejunk it, delegate it, get rid of it, problem solve it in some sort of way? The O is, how am I going to take care of myself, knowing what I know about the impact of stress on me? So how is that gonna help me to pick and choose strategies? So if I feel it in my stomach, making maybe drinking more water or taking more time to eat my meals or watching the kinds of foods that I eat. But when I know the symptoms, I can also put in place strategies that are going to help with those in particular, but they're also going to be strategies that are going to give me a reprieve, buffer to bring more joy into my life, to be able to let go of things. So they do nothing about the situation, but they absolutely give you the energy that you need in order to be able to um, be resilient and take care of yourself. And then the last S is, who is in that support network, and to think about it bigger than what you would think of, like your best friend and your spouse and your spiritual advisor. It could be a community leader, it could be your HR department, it could be your EAP, it could be your mechanic if you're having car problems, it could be your pets. um, Spirituality does fit into this category, that belief in something bigger than yourself. But the more connected we are, the more resilient we are, because we don't feel like we're fighting the battles on our own. And so having, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to take care of yourself? And who's there to support you? Those are really prime questions when it comes to putting together an action plan to deal with whatever the challenge is, or challenge that you're facing at the moment.
Hmm. That that model is simple enough that I could teach it to my daughter.
Yeah.
I really like it. So, in times of stress, we're more likely, and I don't know if this fits into discussion, but I bet people are curious. In times of stress, we're likely to act out our emotions. Do you have any tip for how we can stop ourselves from doing that and making the situation worse?
Uh, I think I ate, and probably still do, bags and bags of, chocolate covered almonds and,
Good.
oh,
Good.
yeah, just chocolate's the answer for everything. But so part of it is being aware. What do you like? How do you express those emotions? I tend to be short tempered. I tend to stomp and vent it out. Like I've got to get it off my chest before I can get into the logic part of my brain in order to be
Yeah.
able to. So when you have insight as to who you are, then you can start to prepare yourself. I know that when I get overtired, my legs get jumpy, I get edgy, all of these things happen. So don't get overtired is the piece. And I can say that, but there inevitably is going to be something that's going to cause me to get there. So then what do I need to do? Well, I know I need to not jam my schedule from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, because I my patience isn't there to be able to deal with all of that stuff. So it's understanding my own rhythm. Uh, a long time ago, when we were cavemen and cave women, we had a rhythm to life. You dealt with a stressful situation and you came back down. You dealt with the next stressful situation and you came back down. But now, we get up in the morning, we're late for work, there's too much to do, not enough time to do it. We've lost this rhythm. And so for me, it's about how can you manage your time and energy, so that you're not taxing it to the point where you've got nothing left in the tank by the time you go to bed.
So it's easy to be resilient when we're optimistic. I mean, think good things are coming. But how do you maintain resilience when you're worried or there's a lot of uncertainty? Which I feel like, I guess I said in the intro, there is quite a bit of uncertainty at the moment.
Mhm. I go back to a graphic that I posted on LinkedIn at the beginning of the pandemic, and it was just a very simple graphic, and you've seen it before, but it's the control, not what can't I control, what can I control circle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was amazed. The first time I posted it, it went viral. I had people from, like, Africa and Asia and Australia, like, all commenting on this thing. And so 6 months later, I posted it again, and the same thing happened. And then 6 months later, I did the same thing, same graphic. And, I think this last one's up to, like, 16,000 likes and comments and shares, and it's not that it is crazy, but I think the reason it hits home, even though you've seen it so many times, is that when we are going through change, challenge, and chaos, the reminder to make sure that we are focused in on the right thing is so crucial. And I think, as friends and as family members and supporters and, employers and HR, we can help people to remind them to focus in on, okay, so what is it that you can do right now? How can you take care of yourself? What kinds of things are you saying to yourself? Those are things that we have control over. I can't, my dad is dealing with multiple myeloma. He was diagnosed last year at this time. My brother just had his both knees replaced on Friday. So there's these big things, these big challenges in my core family. I can't do anything about them. I but how I take care of myself and how I show up to these things, I do have control over.
In a similar vein, if someone out there is feeling like their resilience is at an all-time low and they can't deal with a whole lot of advice because sometimes it gets that bad, what is one thing you would tell them?
So if it gets to the point where you are struggling and it feels like you're drowning and you don't know where else to turn, I would say that's the time that you need to reach out for professional help. And for some people that's such a foreign concept, and in fact, in some cultures, it's seen as a disgrace to do that. But when we reach out to somebody, what they're really doing is they're going to help to reflect the situation. They're going to tap into our strengths. They're going to tap into those fears. They're going to put things back into perspective. They're going to help you to figure out what that action plan is. And sometimes we just need somebody that we can talk to. It might be a good friend. It might be a spiritual advisor. It might be your family doctor, or it could be a therapist, a counselor, a psychologist, or a psychiatrist. But really what they're doing is they're helping you to be able to problem solve. They're not
Mm,
taking away your problem solving abilities, but they're going to ask the right questions to help you to be able to figure out what do I have control over?
mhm.
What is my next step? How can I manage this? How can I break it down into smaller pieces? And the more that you do that, the stronger you get, the the more focused you get, the better your ability is to be able to move through those change, challenges, and traumas.
This is also, I mean, just what we're talking about is the third part of your SOS.
Yeah. Sport is so incredibly important.
Yeah, we're a social species. I'll say that 3 times fast. Okay, where can someone find out more about you and your work?
Well, my website is worksmartlivesmart.com. And from there, you can, all of the stuff that I talked about today on resiliency strategies. If you go to the blog, there's over 500 articles on mental health, resiliency, leadership, workplace engagement. So you can find all kinds of information there. As well, you'll see all of the programs that I deliver for teams and leaders. So you can tap into that as well.
Okay, wonderful. I'll put links to all of those in the show notes. Well, thanks, Beverly. That was wonderful. The part I'm thinking about is just the role that we, as I said at the end, are a social species, and the part that we need connection. Connection was my word of the year last year. Still relevant, and I have seen in other articles around the looming problems with loneliness and things like that. So take advantage, nurture those friendships, nurture those connections out there. However, we have reached the end of this episode. Thanks for listening out there. We will catch you next time when I talk with another insightful guest.